My name is Ethan. I'm 24 years old and from a suburban neighborhood in New Jersey with a huge thing for photography. I had been eyeing the Nikon Z8 for ages. It was like the holy grail for photographers like me, but let's be real, the price tag wasn't exactly wallet friendly. So, when I spotted an eBay listing for a Z8 at half the usual cost, it felt like I hit the jackpot. The seller seemed legit enough, with good reviews and a solid history of sales. I thought I was being smart about it, you know? So I messaged the seller, and everything checked out. My heart was racing with excitement as I clicked buy. This was it, the big leap towards upgrading my photography game. I paid using my credit card, and that was that. I was finally going to own the Nikon Z8. Now if I only knew how wrong I was, and how this deal was about to turn my life upside down. A few days later, a package arrived. My hands were practically shaking with excitement as I tore it open, but what I found inside, it was like a bad joke. Instead of the Nikon Z8, there were just stacks of old, tattered magazines. My heart sank. I was scammed. I immediately shot off a message to the seller, demanding an explanation, maybe even hoping for some kind of mistake, but the response I got was chilling. The guy just laughed it off, saying, and I quote, "Better luck next time." I felt my blood boil. I tried to reason with him, even threaten him with police action, but all I got were taunts and more insults. It was clear I wasn't getting my money or the camera back. But then, after one day, things started getting really creepy. I started noticing odd things around my house. It began with small stuff, like finding my garden gate open when I was sure I had closed it. Then, one evening, I saw someone peering through my living room window. By the time I got outside, they were gone. This kept up for a few nights, and each time I was too slow or too late to catch whoever it was. I wasn't sure if it was my imagination running wild, or if the eBay scammer was somehow involved. It sounds crazy, right? But I couldn't shake off this feeling of being watched and even stalked. I reported it to the police, but they said there wasn't much they could do without more evidence. One night it all came to a head. I heard a noise in my backyard, and grabbing a baseball bat, I decided enough was enough. I was not going to be intimidated in my own home. So I quietly made my way outside, heart racing, ready to confront the intruder. And there, in the dim light, was a figure crouched near my back door. There he was, just a few feet away. The shadowy figure crouched by my door. Adrenaline pumping, I yelled out, "Who are you? What do you want?" The figure jerked up, caught off guard. For a moment, we just stared at each other under the dim backyard light. It was the eBay seller, the same face from his profile picture, but now twisted into a mix of surprise and anger. He lunged at me, and my instincts took over. I charged at him, and we tumbled onto the ground, a mess of fists and grunts. I managed to land a good punch on his face, and he staggered back, looking dazed. And that's when I heard the sirens. We were pretty loud and I was yelling, and my neighbor must have called the cops. The guy looked panicked, a contrast to his earlier confidence. He tried to make a run for it, but I wasn't about to let him get away that easily. We raced through the backyard, crashing into fences and stumbling over garden tools. It was chaos. The sirens grew louder, with the flashing lights cutting through the darkness. Then, out of nowhere, a cop appeared, tackling the guy to the ground. I stood there panting, watching as they handcuffed him. The reality of the situation hit me like a ton of bricks. This wasn't just some online scam. This was real, physical, and dangerous. The police later told me that the guy had a history of fraud, but this was the first time he had escalated to this level of intimidation and violence. The police took over, asking some questions while the scammer sat in the back of the cruiser with his head down. Turns out, he'd been pulling similar stunts across the state, but no one had ever caught him in an act like this. The cops were as shocked as I was that an eBay scam had spiraled into something so sinister. As they drove him away, a mix of relief and disbelief washed over me. I was safe, but the whole experience just left me shaken. I couldn't help but think about how differently things might have turned out. I gave my statement, and the officers assured me that they'd handle everything from there. I watched as the police lights faded into the night, feeling a strange sense of closure. The danger was gone, but the memory of that night lingered for a long time. My name's Lisa, and if there's one thing you should know about me, is that I have a soft spot for antiques. Not the run-of-the-mill kind that you would find at any old thrift store, but the rare, story-filled pieces that speak of past lives. So when I stumbled upon a listing on eBay for an ornate antique mirror, rumored to be from the Victorian era, my heart skipped a beat. It was exactly the kind of thing I lived for, a piece that would complete my collection in my cozy studio apartment nestled in downtown Brooklyn. The price was steep, but for something this unique, I was willing to stretch my budget. I placed my bid, and soon I won. The anticipation of its arrival was now almost as thrilling as the purchase itself. A week later, a large, carefully wrapped package was delivered to my doorstep. Excitement bubbled inside me as I unwrapped it, revealing the stunning mirror. But my excitement dimmed when I noticed a note tucked behind the frame. In uneven, hurried scrawl, it read, "Beware, its beauty is but a facade." A chill ran down my spine, but I brushed it off as a peculiar joke from the seller. However, things quickly took a turn for the worse. The seller, who had been communicative and courteous before the sale, began sending me messages that grew increasingly unsettling. At first they inquired if I was happy with the purchase, but soon the messages became more personal, hinting at the knowledge of my daily comings and goings. "Liked the coffee this morning?" one read, after I just returned from the coffee shop down the street. How could they possibly know? Then I started noticing a figure loitering near my apartment building at odd hours, always keeping to the shadows. My initial thought was to dismiss it as a city-living paranoia, but when I saw the same silhouette lurking near my window one evening, fear took hold. It became clear that these incidents were connected to the mirror and the seller behind it. One evening, determined to confront this stalker, I waited. As expected, the figure appeared, this time bold enough to try the front door. I confronted them, armed with nothing but sheer adrenaline. "Why are you doing this?" I demanded. The figure, caught off guard, stumbled back, revealing their face in the streetlight. It was a man, his eyes wide with panic. Before I could react, he dashed away. Refusing to be intimidated, I gave chase. The pursuit was short-lived though, as the police, alerted by a concerned neighbor, arrived just in time to detain him. It turned out that he was the seller. The mirror, being a family heirloom, was supposedly cursed, and he believed its sale had brought misfortune upon him. His desperation had driven him to the brink, leading him to stalk me, the unwitting buyer of this cursed treasure. The police took him away, and as I watched, a mix of relief and disbelief washed over me. This whole thing was over, but the shadow it cast lingered. I worked with the authorities, providing evidence from our eBay interactions and the unnerving messages. The investigation revealed that I was not his first target. Previous buyers had faced similar harassment, but hadn't connected the dots back to him. The mirror remains in my collection, a haunting reminder of this whole incident. I've grown more cautious now, vetting sellers with an almost obsessive diligence. The experience has left a mark, a wariness that tinges my passion for collecting. It's a strange feeling, really, knowing how closely beauty and danger can intertwine. My My name is Michael, not exactly your typical guy with a thing for online shopping, but there I was on eBay, eyes locked on what looked like the deal of the century, a used Mercedes E-Class. It wasn't just any car, it was the kind of car that always seemed a bit out of reach for a guy like me. The seller's profile seemed legit enough, packed with positive reviews and a solid transaction history. So with a mix of excitement and that nagging voice in the back of my head whispering that it's too good to be true, I went for it. I hit the buy button, feeling like I'd just won the lottery. Little did I know that this deal was about to take me on a ride far darker and more twisted than anything I could have imagined. The car arrived shortly, and it was in pristine condition. For the first few days, it was pure bliss. I drove around the neighborhood, basking in the envious glances from neighbors. But then the atmosphere shifted. It started with a call from an unknown number, the kind that leaves you with a chill running down your spine. The voice on the other end was cold, almost amused. "Hope you're enjoying the car. Won't be for long." I laughed it off. It had to be a prank. But then, when notes started appearing under the windshield, saying things like, "Return what you've taken," it stopped being funny. I tried to brush it off, but the sense of being watched grew overwhelming. I later decided to investigate the car and looked into its history, and later found a chilling, revealing detail. Its previous owner was now an imprisoned criminal with a reputation that made my blood run cold and genuinely freaked me out. In the coming days, the threats escalated, morphing from eerie phone calls into outright confrontations from random strangers on the street. Shadows lurked at the edge of my property, and every creak and whisper of the wind felt like a warning. One evening, the threats materialized into a tangible danger. An ominous-looking white man in a suit, probably in his late 30s, approached me in my own driveway. His presence threatened me. "The car," he demanded, his voice laced with a threat that left no room for doubt. "It's not yours to keep." The confrontation was brief but intense, ending with the arrival of police sirens piercing the night. The man was an associate of the car's previous owner, part of a network that used any means necessary to reclaim what was once theirs. The police intervention opened a can of worms that I was ill-prepared to deal with. My simple eBay purchase had unknowingly placed me in the crosshairs of a criminal underworld, a reality far removed from the suburban tranquility of my life. In the aftermath, cooperating with the police investigation shed light on the dark path the car had taken before ending up in my possession. The network was extensive, their operations sprawling, using online marketplaces like eBay as their playground. The realization that I was merely a pawn in their game was sobering. The threats ceased, but the shadow of the whole incident remained, a constant reminder of the dangers lurking within too-good-to-be-true deals. Reflecting on the entire experience, I've come to see the online world through a more cautious lens. The Mercedes, as much as it was a symbol of luxury and success, had brought within a tale of caution. It taught me to look beyond the surface and to question and verify. In a world eager to deceive, vigilance is your greatest ally, and sometimes the best deals are the ones you walk away from, peace of mind intact.